It is no wonder the government wants the so-called Morrison affair to go on forever. But I wouldn't mind being a fly on the wall when Treasurer Chalmers meets Prime Minister Albanese sitting in on the government's Expenditure Review Committee. The issue? Stage 3 tax cuts. On the one hand, the Reserve Bank, jacking up interest rates, is taking money out of the hands of the battler. The Reserve Bank Governor, who, as you know, I believe, shouldn't have his job on over $1 million a year, completely messed up the interest rate challenge last year and encouraged borrowers to believe that cheap money was here for some years to come. Now he's telling us that interest rates will have to continue to climb to, quote, slow the economy and get things back on an even keel, unquote. So what happens to the stage 3 income tax cuts? Well, as I said yesterday when I spoke to Tim Buckley, we're facing a mountain of debt. How do you retire the debt? Certainly not by continuing to spend. But the stage 3 of these income tax cuts come into being in 2024. It could well be argued that the economy by then may need some injection to prop up demand, especially when households in 2024 will be into their third year of higher interest rates and real wage cuts. But here's Labor's problem. The stage 3 tax cuts were then opposed at the time by Labor, at first, at a time when Labor was trying hard to keep all sections of the voter community happy. 2018, it happens with oppositions. But let me tell you what these tax cuts mean. In its first year, 2024, these cuts are estimated to cost $15.7 billion in 1 year, almost as much as will be spent on the pharmaceutical benefit scheme and more than will be spent on higher education. What I find absurd is that this was legislated in 2018 to take effect 6 years down the track. The Parliamentary Budget Office believes that the stage 3 tax cut cost will be $183.4 billion in its first 7 years, but almost $140 billion of that will be directed to Australians on $120,000 or more. You see, what Morrison and Frydenberg did was to cut the tax rate applying to incomes over $45,000 from 32.5 cents in the dollar to 30 cents. But that low rate extends all the way up to $200,000. So the entire rung, an entire rung on the tax ladder was abolished. So for those very high income earners, the part of their income that was taxed at 37 cents will now be taxed at 30 cents. And the next part that was taxed at 45 cents will also be taxed at 30 cents. So a politician on a base salary of $217,000 will get a tax cut of about $10,000. A registered nurse on about $72,000 will get a tax cut of about $681. This is a politically lethal problem for Prime Minister Albanese to defend. Labor waved these tax cuts through the Parliament, even though they were unaffordable, regressive and biased towards men. I'll come to that in a minute. But Anthony Albanese in opposition didn't want a repeat of the tax scare campaign that was mounted against his predecessor, Bill Shorten, in 2019. But how does Labor defend the fact that someone on $45,000, which is about half the average full-time income of $90,000, will pay the same rate of tax as someone on more than double that figure, someone on $180,000? Is that reform? Someone's going to raise the fact that given the current income statistics of men and women, 78% of the $15.7 billion in 24-25 will go to the top 20% of income earners, 78% of it, and the split of the dollars between male earners and female earners, this will be embarrassing for the government, will be 67% for men because they're on higher wages and 33% for women. Now, that was accepted by Albanese in opposition. No homework, or perhaps too frightened to oppose. Is it tax fairness to reward those who don't need a handout and punish those who carried the burden of looking after the country during coronavirus? Nurses, policemen, frontline security. Good luck, Jim Chalmers, trying to defend all of this, let alone explain it. But then how can the opposition attack the government? It is their legislation. But if the new government is worried about debt and fairness and what the nation can afford, almost $200 billion splashed out in 2024 in this way doesn't seem to meet any of the appropriate criteria. These are tax cuts, money that government has taken from us. But we should always give back first to those who need it the most when they need it. And in these stage 3 tax cuts, that's not happening. Over to you, Jim Chalmers.